Hello, 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 ladies of the Women Over 50. It's time to come home to yourself. Julie Scott here, your fearless leader, and I am back with a second installment of my new Coming Home Conversations series. And this is scratching my itch for a podcast that I haven't done yet. And today I have the pleasure of talking to
Mm.
my good friend, my new friend, my good friend, Terri Mullen. She is a midlife disruptor, a reinvention strategist, a podcast host, an author, a coach. She helps women launch their online businesses. She also loves her family and strong coffee. Can we get a hell yes for strong coffee? Woohoo! Hey, Terri, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here, and it's fun for me to be on this side of the microphone because usually I'm on the other side, and you've been on my podcast, so this is fun for me to do this. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So the purpose of these coming home conversations is really just about real women having real conversations and talking about the things that have happened in our lives, the struggles, the failures, the wins, the whatever that have brought us here that always seem like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, but that is usually the catalyst that got us to
Mm.
where we are here. We all have our stories. So I would love for you to share your powerful story of kind of how you came to where you are today. I know there's a
Mm.
lot of years and details in between, but maybe just share some of the most poignant moments that really kind of woke you up and turned you around and got you where you are today. So you can start wherever you like, and I'll just jump in wherever I feel like it. How about that?
Perfect. Just jump in and ask me questions.
Okay,
Well,
cool.
thank you. It's so interesting because I just wrote a post on LinkedIn about I call it the long driveway moment. So, and that was a pivotal time for me. So we have four children. I've been married 35 years.
Mm.
Um, and I remember distinctly, we had moved to Austin, Texas. We had our dream home, and my husband decided that he wanted to move back to Los Angeles. And so I did not. And it was at that point, that was a point that caused a big fracture in our relationship because I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel heard, I didn't feel valued at that point. And at that point, I was a full-time mom. So I had given up my career many years earlier to raise our kids, which was the best thing I ever did. But at this point, I didn't want to move back. I didn't want to move to Texas because we moved from California, but then we were there for 11 years, made
Mm.
amazing friends, and our kids were really involved, and I didn't want to move, but my husband wanted to come back to LA. And so we did. And in my book, Step Forward, I share the story. It's the opening story of me, in standing in that house completely vacant. At that point, we had a 6,500 square foot house. I'm standing there. I'm
Woo.
looking down at the floors. I am in tears. The house is empty. Everybody's gone. And my best friend walks down the driveway, and she lived up the street, and she's standing at the door, and I just collapsed. And I said, "Why are you here?" And she said, "Because I'm not going to allow you to lock this door or close this door one last time." See, every time I talk about this, I get emotional.
I'll
She
bet.
said,
I'll bet.
"I'm going to walk up this driveway with you." And
Mm.
so we did. She held my hand. We walked, arm in arm. And I say in my book, I describe it was like walking through mud and, going 100 miles, walking 100 miles in mud up that driveway. It was just slow. And it was a very pivotal moment for me because I decided at that point what was next. Who am
Mm.
I? Who am I really now? I didn't want to just be Scott's wife. I wanted to be, or my children's mom, although that was a valuable role. But our youngest was entering middle school. And once he got through middle school and entered high school, then I decided I was going to really go and reinvent myself. And so that became a huge pivotal turning point for me. And that's why I wrote my book. It says, how to navigate midlife transitions, overcome hard things, and rediscover yourself. And I basically went on a mission to figure out who the hell I was now. Like, who am I outside of being Scott's wife and all these things? So
Yeah.
that's how it started, you know?
I think that's one of the things that we all struggle with through life. It's like we get really comfortable in a particular identity, right? Whether it's
Mm,
daughter, student, right? Girlfriend, wife, mother, right?
Right.
Caretaker. I mean,
Right.
there's all these different roles that we take on, all these identities that we take on. And, so many women in this group that, their kids have left home. They're like, now what?
Right.
I don't even know who I am without children anymore. I mean, that's another, stepping stone in life for so many women. Um, but for what do you feel like was the first thing that you did to kind of just start? You know what I mean? Because it's like it feels like when you think about reinventing yourself, it's like it seems like an elephant, and it's like, oh, how do I eat that? You know what I mean? And I know it's one bite at a time, but it's like, what was that first bite for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I really, I mean, this was such a pivotal moment for me. I had had so many dreams that I kind of shelved and I forgot who I was. I really did. I had to go on this mission and figure out who I was. What did I even like to do? I kind of forgot. And so I just started trying. I mean, from the very, very beginning, I started trying all different things. I went and got my real estate license. I started taking dressage lessons, silly things like in the very, very beginning, doing tennis, all these dumb things that I wasn't even really doing for myself, started taking care of myself.
Hmm.
And that kind of led to other things. But the real precipitous turning point for me was that I decided I got on Instagram. I'd always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to write a book. That was like
Hmm.
top of my list. But I started an Instagram account but under a pseudonym. I didn't have the faith or belief in myself that I could
Oh.
show up as myself. It started out as build your life with love. At that point, we
Oh.
were trying to rebuild our
Hmm.
life with love. Who are we? Who are we now? What's next? So that's where it started. That's I showed up and just started posting content, writing as myself. I mean, well,
Huh.
as writing under a pseudonym, but
What
yeah,
was your pseudonym then?
it was build your life with love. That
Oh,
was the
build your life
that
with
was
love.
the account. Yep.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
And
Okay.
then I
That
came out.
right. Now, how long ago was that?
Oh my gosh, that was way back in, I was like 2015. So it's been a long, that was like 10 years ago. I mean, it's
Oh
been a
my
long time
goodness.
ago.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. So
And
now
then
your boys are all grown and out of the house and
yeah, everybody's gone. Our youngest graduated high school in 2019. So I started writing, then I stopped because we moved back to Austin for a little bit.
what?
Yeah. Oh, we have a whole, it's Mr. Toad's Wild
You
Ride.
you are a trooper. What I mean, is this for your husband's business
Hmm.
or okay.
Yeah. We moved back to Austin for a little bit. We were there. Our son graduated high school, and then we moved back to LA after that. So, um, but it was really when I went back to Austin that second time that things really kind of started to unfold. I went back and went to work, and just kind of
Doing
I went back to work at Nordstrom.
I love
Isn't
it.
that fun? I mean, so this is the path. This is the windy path. This is really the reinvention path. And what was really great about that was it was in that moment where I really found who I was. I realized,
Mm,
wow, I forgot what I could do. I had to write a resume. It'd been years since I had written a resume. I'm like, what the hell's a resume? I got to rewrite. Who am I? Like, what am I? I'm CEO of my home. What does that look like? And I downplayed the strengths and things that I really had within. But what I learned when I was working, how much I loved people, how much I loved
hmm.
having conversations with women, how much I loved making them feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
all the steam stuff came bubbling up, right?
Yeah. So you got to just try things to see what you like, what you don't like, because we can't think our way forward. I
We can't,
found, right?
we can't.
One of the things that I do, it's like I'm a firm believer in getting in touch with your inner self, so that because there's so
Mm,
much wisdom and information. In fact, all our information and wisdom is in us if we can just quiet ourselves enough to hear it. To hear that still small voice that's like, go left. No, go straight. No, turn right. Right. So, what were you doing? What was your original career? Like, what was that
I
before
was a
everything?
hairstylist.
Oh,
That's a
right,
whole,
right.
I mean, we could talk about this for hours. I have a wild and wandering path, but yeah, I helped my mom start her salon. And so
Yeah.
I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So I helped her start her salon and I was a hairstylist for a long time. So I say, much of what I'm doing now, like empowering women, encouraging women, that's always been kind of in me. I love that, making women feel great about themselves, believe in themselves. I've been coaching long before I ever knew I was coaching.
Right. Because I mean, who doesn't get advice from their hairdresser?
Right,
That or a
right.
bartender?
Exactly.
How
Yeah.
cool. I didn't realize. Oh, yeah, you did tell me that, but I'd forgotten that that
Yeah.
was the original career. And
Yeah.
okay, and so then you worked at Nordstrom's. And I know that I worked in retail also. I have that in my past. I mean, we have so
Ah,
many similarities. Retail in my past, but you have a love for people. I mean, it's so
yeah.
apparent in you.
Mm,
I mean, you're so inquisitive and curious about people. And I think that's when you really look
yeah.
at just what brings you, what makes you happy, what makes you smile. People always say what brings you joy. It's like I think about like what you can do easily and effortlessly.
Yeah.
That's usually an indicator, right, of something
Yeah.
that you could do. Like what are you good at? Like
Yeah.
I'm good at talking to people too. I'm a good
Oh, yeah.
listener. I'm a good, you know what I mean? I love cheering people on. I'm a great cheerleader, right? So it kind of follows that I would end up in this kind of a role too.
Yeah.
What were other signposts for you that you along the way that, really kind of pointed you in this direction?
I got a coach so that was really it. My husband's always been, it's kind of funny. I say we have a blended blended businesses because I have mine, he has his, and then we have ours together. And we were
Right.
laughing and joking about all the times early on in our marriage how I mean, we went to Tony Robbins way back in the day and Zig Ziglar and all these things that we used to do. So that
Ah,
personal growth and development's always been a part of us, and we've kind of grown together, even though we hit this fracture in our communication, kind of midlife, we've also always really liked personal growth and development. So when we moved back here to California, I found a coach and she said to me, Terri, you need to be a coach. And I said, a what? Why? I have been through way too much. Why would I ever coach anybody? And she goes, exactly.
exactly. I was going to say that's why. Hello. Yeah.
And so that just kind of stuck in the back of my mind. But then I went on and took some courses like we all do, right?
Yeah.
Um, the very first course I ever took was still my favorite one I ever did, and they had us walk through these different exercises. I knew going into this that I wanted to write a book, so that was like done. But what happened was the very last exercise they had us do was record a podcast intro. And so I'm like, oh, what the heck? It's a challenge. I'm going to go for it. I love a challenge. Give me a challenge. I'll do it. So I decided to do it. And back then, I mean, I had my Apple headphones. I plugged it into my iPhone, went and sat in my car, and I created this intro. I just did it, recorded it over and over. And I'm like, huh, played it back. Huh, I kind of like the sound of my voice. I don't hate my voice. Okay, interesting. Maybe I can just talk to women. I was I had done some posting, but maybe I can just talk to women on um, this podcast. If I touch one life on the other side of this microphone, then awesome. And so I just did it. So that
Ah,
was kind of the precipitous. I tell everybody not to do it the way I did it because the mistake I made was that I didn't tell very many people that I was doing a podcast.
yeah.
But anyway,
But you,
that's
but,
what
but
launched it.
that makes sense, though. I mean, when you're doing something new and you don't have a lot of self-confidence around it yet, you don't feel like you're good at it yet because you're new at it. And I'm sure you could go back to one of your early episodes and compare it to one of your current episodes and see and
Oh,
hear your growth, right? It's like, but although the early episodes were still valuable because it's still you being your authentic self, sharing your experience, your life, your lived experience, your knowledge, your wisdom, what you've learned, trying to help people avoid their own potholes, right? But
right.
it makes sense that you wouldn't share it. I mean, I mean, I even when I started out with my coaching business, I mean, you know, people would say, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm a life coach." I mean, it wasn't something that, I
Yeah.
felt secure about, even though I was excited about it. It's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
So,
But now it's cool. Now it's really cool to be a coach, like
yeah, of
but
course.
we doubt it, we question, we wonder if we're qualified, all those things. And for me, the voice part was a really big part of my journey. Much like you say, like coming home to you, that was also part of me being authentic and true to who I am. Like, who am I really? What is my voice? I've been you and I've talked about this,
Hmm.
the good girl, the pleaser, looking for approval. And finally being able to stand up for myself and say, I want this, I don't want that.
Right.
It was a really powerful and empowering moment to start a podcast, to use my voice, to speak my truth, to share, and then also create a platform for other women to do the same. So that's kind of been my coming home journey, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when did your book come out? When did you do
I
that?
That's been 3 years now. I wrote it on my yeah, it'll be 3 years this year. It was on my 59th birthday. So I tell everybody,
Uh,
go write a book. And this is the awesome thing too about Amazon. Well, you have your book too, right? We have
yeah, I
this in
do.
common
Yep, yep, yep.
too.
Yeah.
Um, but I wrote my book on I published it on my 59th birthday. I did take a course to help me because I am pretty goal driven, so I wanted to get it done.
Same.
Um, I, you know, I was really hard on myself. I thought I would get it done in 3 months. It was a lot longer than that, but
Yeah, same.
you know, but this is what I tell everybody. I'm so grateful for Amazon because, we can self-publish, we can go back and edit, we can revise, we can do all those things, and it's not as scary as I say. There's so many books and people that went to the grave because back in the day,
Have
you
a
had to have a
publisher.
publisher, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was 3 years ago that I published my book, and it's still one of the greatest things I ever did. Hardest thing I ever did. I think it was really a moment of being really vulnerable and
Mm.
being, sharing my
Well, if
story.
you
And
if you're going to write a book about yourself and your own journey, it's so healing to be completely authentic and real about it. I mean, I remember when I was writing my book, I really wrote the book not because I thought it would help my business at all. I wrote it because I knew I had something to say. And in fact, I
Mhm.
shared with you that about 9 years ago, I started a podcast because I knew I had something to say way back then. And I recorded like 6 or 8 episodes or something, and then I chickened out because the platform back then to do a podcast was so much more complicated and
Oh,
technical. And it was like, and I was like, I can't do it. And I
yeah,
just freaked myself. And I had a full-time job at the time. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't. And so
yeah.
I just stopped and I put some of the recordings on my old website and I just let it go.
Oh, wow.
But, um, but then writing my book, I remember when I was writing my book, I thought, well, I just really want to get it all out of me, like up to that point. And I published in 2019, but I didn't get mine done in the amount of time I thought I would either.
Mm,
That was just the whole story around that. But I felt really proud of the fact that I really did bare my soul,
mm,
but I wrote it really for me.
yeah.
And I really didn't even think about anybody else reading it.
Mm, I love that.
It's just funny how I never really thought about that. But then I think I told you the story about when I was working with a coach to write this book, and I think there was 4 other women in this group doing it. And she suggested when we were about 70% done to send it out for early testimonials.
Mm,
And I remember sending those emails, and I mean, I was just like, I was so scared. I'm like, somebody's gonna read this.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, and I woke up the next morning with a backache, like a lower backache that was crazy
Mm,
that didn't go away
mm,
for like 6 months. I mean, it was terrible. But I mean, but I knew it's because I cared so much and
right,
I put so much into it.
right.
So, go ahead.
I just was going to say, I think I shared this with you. If you've ever heard Elizabeth Gilbert say, with
Yes.
Eat, Pray, Love, she said she wrote that book for herself. So she said, if I would have written that book for everybody else, it would have been a completely different book. I wrote that for
Yeah.
me because we hear this sometimes, like, don't write the book for yourself, write it for other people. But there's a testament to that,
Well, I
who
mean, yeah,
knows? You never
they
know.
do say write it for the reader in mind. It's like,
It's hard
I
to do
think
that.
that it's hard, very hard to do that, especially if it's about yourself,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've started a second book, so we'll see when I get that done.
Yay! That's
So
awesome. That's
yeah. So,
awesome. I,
so what I want to ask you this. So, to the woman who is sitting with her toes on the edge of wanting to make a change, what advice would you give her? I mean, to make her not feel a little less scared, maybe?
Number one, I would find a coach or a community just to support you. And I would lean into that prompting, whoever you feel connected to. Um, lean in and just give that a try because I think it's really hard to do it yourself. I think it's
Yeah,
really
me too.
scary. It is. And it's the online business especially is a big red ocean and it can feel very intimidating. You and I are both so much further out now, but when you're first starting out, it's like you don't even know where to start. You don't know who to start with. You don't know what should you use, what tools, all those things, right?
Yeah.
So number one, I say is find a coach that you line up with in a community. Um, and I would also say, don't overthink it. Just dive in. The benefits, you and I were talking a little bit about AI. I
Mm-hmm.
think back when you and I wrote our books, we didn't have AI.
Oh, no, no.
I was even just
Mm-mm.
telling my husband the other day, like all these things that we didn't have. Like you can now enter in your content ideas and you can plan your week and you can have it just help you, not write for you, because I hated AI when it first came out as a writer.
Yeah.
But if you use it to your benefit, where it can help you think through things, it can be a positive. So
Mm-hmm.
I think being open to the different tools that you need to start, and then at the same time, just starting. And one of the things, another post I did actually just yesterday was I would just dive in and do it. I think we overthink it so much and not play
Yeah.
small. Be proud of who you are. We all have a story within us. We all have ideas in us. And I think we often go out look for other people's approval and it trips
Ah,
us up.
it does.
And I'll give you an example of this. So that's the other thing is just be proud of it. Don't do what I did. Don't play small and not share your podcast. Like I got a text literally from my best friend and said, "Hello, Redlow." And I was like, I said, "How'd you find
How
out?"
do
She
you
said,
know?
"That's exactly my response. It's so ridiculous." And that was such an aha moment for me because I realized, wow, I'm playing that small that I didn't even tell my best friend that I had this.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Be proud of it. Be proud of what your content, your life, your story, and who you are right now. People want to connect with people. AI is wonderful, but as it continues to grow, people need more connection with human beings.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was just thinking about, because so often people are like, well, I've only been a secretary, or I've only been a mom, or I've only been an accountant, or I've only been, I only have experience doing whatever my career was. So
Right.
how can I do something else? It's like, and they discount all that time, but it's like, all of that experience still translates into literally anything that you do because when you think about it, you're still going to be dealing with people,
Yep.
right? You're still going to be, creating some sort of a thing or a product or service or
Right.
something,
Right.
right? And and if you have the added benefit of not having to make money, good on you. But if you do want to make money, there's so many ways to do that. But my point is all that lived experience you have still applies to whatever you
100%.
decide to move forward with, right? It's your own wisdom, your lived wisdom in life, right?
Yeah, and I think you really have to trust the journey. I mean, look at where I started, and there's even more from that from, college, not going to college and all these things that I thought I was going to do and the detours I took.
Yeah.
But every path, every part of my windy Mr. Toad's Wild Ride has led me right here to where I am. I wouldn't have
Yep.
been able to do what I'm doing now, even 20 years ago, you
Yeah.
know? Everything we go through leads us to the place we are now. And I think trusting that journey, trusting that process, trusting your story. No one
Mm-hmm.
else has your story. No one else has your
Yeah.
experience, right?
So true.
And what you've been through can help somebody else.
1000%. I can't tell you how
So,
much I agree with that. I mean, our story is everything.
yeah,
It's our superpower, really. And I find so often in my life I felt alone, thinking
mm,
I'm the only one going through this. I mean, I went through a divorce. You
right.
know, all these different things happened in my life, and I thought, oh, but once you start getting it out of the shame, right? Getting and bringing it into the light and sharing it with other people. I found that with my book. That's why it was so healing. All the things that I was
Yeah,
so embarrassed about that gave me the stomach ache thinking about sending it out to somebody to read. So many people resonated with it. They're like,
yeah,
oh my God, I had no idea you went through that. I went through that.
yeah,
And I'm like, I didn't know you went through that. And as soon as we share our story, I just got chills. We realize that we're all going through the same
mm,
thing. And we're just so worried about being judged or not belonging or, all of that. And
right.
it's like, we just like you said, I think we're all looking to belong and feel like we're not the only ones or that are going through this. We just have to talk about it. We have to share our stories, share ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
100%. I
Uh,
agree with you. It's so true. And I think because that shows our humanness, and that's what our stories are, what connect us to other people. And so often, just like me, we hide behind them. We're afraid, like you said, we're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid to share. And we don't have to share everything. We don't have to let all the dirty laundry out, but
yeah.
enough to share people, to allow people to feel like they belong too. At the end of every podcast, I say, you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, you are valued, and you belong. And
Oh,
it's, for that reason, I want everybody to feel like they belong. We all have a story. We all have, an experience that someone else can learn from. And I believe that with
yeah.
everything in me.
Oh, me too. Oh,
Yeah.
I love you so much.
Oh,
I can't believe we've only known each other for a few months. I feel like I've
I know.
literally known you my entire life. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is one of those like, as soon as I connected with you, I was like, oh my goodness, I absolutely love her. So, was there
Likewise.
anything else that you would want to share to kind of wrap this up and just kind of words of wisdom, whatever you want to share?
Yeah, I think just kind of going back to finding a community, like what you have here is amazing. I think finding a community where you belong, get connected, ask questions, engage, start there. Really trust your own soul and spirit. I've made mistakes along the way because, as Trent Shelton said, I put on other people's glasses. If you have your vision, no one else can see it the way you can, and you've got to
Mm,
believe in yourself and know you're going to make mistakes. I've done so much messy and you know, but I think having that perseverance to keep going, even when you make mistakes, like I love Sarah Blakely because she's all about that. You just keep going.
yeah, yeah,
There's going to be things that get in the way, but keep going, believing in yourself enough to keep going. And when you doubt and wonder and question, go find help because
yeah.
somebody else will help you along the way. Um, and I think for me, when I look at my life now after raising our kids, and I think this season of life can be one of the most treasured moments if we allow ourselves to really experience it.
Totally agree.
For those of listening here, my podcast is called The Redlow Woman, and I know it sounds quirky. It's actually older spelled backwards, and it's actually an acronym that means reclaim your confidence, embrace your voice, define your path, lead with courage, and own your space.
Mm.
And I really want to empower women with that. And I was actually told, I actually changed the name of my podcast at one point because someone told me not to do it. It was, it's quirky, but I don't care. I now believe in myself enough to say, whatever. Is the word searchable? No, but is anybody else going to go claim Redlow? Probably not. It's mine. I don't have to worry about copywriting that. I mean, people copying that one. But when you do a podcast, the words that you put out in a podcast become search engine optimized, and they're the
Oh, I
keywords
didn't know
like we
that.
all talked about. Yep.
I didn't
But
know that.
really, what's optimized is your descriptions, your titles of your podcast, not necessarily the podcast. Some of the quirkiest podcast titles have done really
Oh, yeah,
great. So
100%.
I share that story just because I changed something. And actually, I really started to shrink when I did it. I went through kind of a hard time, and it was maybe about a year ago.
Mm,
And I decided, I got to own who I am. Goofy, quirky, it's me, it's my story, it's not somebody else. And Redlow is actually my avatar. These things we talk about as an online business, it's my person. She's older, she's stepping forward with her life. She has still at times doubts herself. She may be married, maybe single, she's been through hard shit.
yeah.
She's a person to me. And so, anyway, I get excited talking about this stuff, Julie, because I know you and I are in the same space doing this and wanting to empower women. And you do an amazing job. I mean, you have such an
Oh,
amazing community here. And for all of us, in this season of life, over 50, go for it. Enjoy this life,
I couldn't
right?
agree more. Yeah, well, and I also think too, there, if you look at the number of the people in the population, the number of the largest portion of the population is women from 40 to 65. We're the
Yeah.
largest population in the world.
Do you know
Just
that
think
we're
of
also,
the
it's
power of that.
incredible. Do you
Yeah.
know that we're also the largest age demographic starting, I can't even talk, largest age demographic stepping into entrepreneurship.
Ah,
So So, and that's probably why, if we are the
Yeah.
largest population segment, that makes sense. You know, that includes like coaching and all these other things, probably
Yeah.
some brick and mortar stores as well. But isn't that's, I mean, that just
I
coincides.
Well, I mean, and I just, we all grew up in a patriarchal society, right? And it's like things have just changed so much. And I've read something the other day too that even marriage is more valuable to men now than women. Ooh.
Wow.
Because, because women don't need a man to, right? I
Wow.
mean, whereas in the past, marriage was like an institution, it was like something that was about, safety, security, you know,
Yeah.
procreation, blah, 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 right? All of that.
Right.
But now it's like women have choices. Well, in some countries they don't still, and I hope that changes everywhere. But I mean, women have choices, especially here in America, to not ever get married if they don't want to. And
Right.
they can take care of themselves, right? So
Right.
marriage is more valuable to a man now than a woman. I thought that was really interesting,
That's, yeah, that's really
fascinating.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, my God, I could talk to you for 1,000
Um,
years. Thank you so much for
same.
taking the
Thank
time.
you.
Yeah, and everybody, you've got to listen to her podcast.
Hmm.
Terry's podcast is wonderful. She interviews a lot of cool people. I'm one of them.
Yep.
And also, how can they get a hold of your book?
They can buy my book on Amazon. It's called Step Forward. It's available on Amazon. So yeah, please go get it. I'd love for you to read it. And there's great, I just quickly before we go, I'll tell you quickly. I use shoes as metaphors with my book because those are the shoes I say I needed to step into in order to step forward with my life. So it's a lot of fun. I do have a lot of exercises and things in there for people to look at and hopefully help you decide where you are and what's next. It's kind of really what it's about. So anyway,
Awesome.
that's it.
Oh, that
Thank
was
you
so
for
cool.
having me.
Oh my God. If you guys don't fall in love with her, I don't know what to tell you. She's like the nicest person. Great
Well,
job.
I feel that way about you too. So
All right, we're having dinner next weekend, so
yeah. Well,
yay.
thank you. And just to
You're
everybody,
welcome.
thank you so much. Have an awesome day.
All right. Thanks so much for watching and comment below this video if you had any takeaways or anything you want to chat about. We'd love to hear from you. I'll tag Terry and I'll put some information on how you can find all of her stuff underneath this video as well. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Until next time, Coming Home Conversations. Thanks again for watching.